The Forum Romanum buzzed with life. It was the heart of Rome. People from all walks of life bustled through the square, going about their daily business. It was a chaotic symphony of sights, sounds, and smells. This was ancient Rome in all its glory. Suddenly, a figure materialized out of thin air, standing in the shadow of the Temple of Saturn. James Carter, a historian from the 21st century, had arrived. Bewildered, he clutched his worn leather satchel, which contained his notes and modern-day tools. James surveyed the scene before him, feeling overwhelmed by the sheer antiquity of it all. The grandeur of the Basilica Julia, the solemnity of the rostra, and the constant activity around the Temple of Vesta. It was as if he had stepped into a history book, a book that was now vibrantly alive. He drew a deep breath. The air was thick with the scent of wood smoke, spices, and something unfamiliar. It was the smell of the past. James knew he had a limited time and had to make the most of his extraordinary journey. His mission was simple yet daunting: to observe, to learn, and to leave no trace. James Carter's clothes marked him as a stranger instantly. His jeans and t-shirt were jarring against the togas and tunics of the ancient Romans. People stared, some whispered, and others pointed. He was a man out of time. Trying to blend in, he ducked into the shadow of a grand column adorned with intricate carvings. But there was no escaping the stares. His modern attire was a beacon in this ancient world. His first interaction was with a street vendor selling figs and honey cakes. The language was a barrier, yet a transaction took place with a mixture of gestures and smiles. This simple act highlighted a universal truth that people across time are more alike than different. However, the cultural chasm was undeniable. The way Romans greeted each other, the importance placed on honor and family, and the casual acceptance of slavery. Every encounter was a stark reminder of the vast temporal gulf that separated James from this ancient world. James was sketching the Arch of Titus, trying to capture its details before they faded from his memory. A voice startled him. It was melodic and curious. "You capture its likeness with such precision, stranger. Are you a craftsman from a distant land?" The speaker was a young woman with piercing blue eyes and a quick wit. Her name was Julia Severina, the daughter of a senator. Her intelligence shone through her every word. James, hesitant at first, explained that he was a historian fascinated by Rome's grandeur. Julia, intrigued by his strange accent and even stranger clothes, found herself drawn to him. She offered to be his guide. Thus began their unusual friendship. Julia, with her insider's knowledge, opened up the city to James. She led him through bustling markets and whispered stories behind grand monuments. James, in turn, shared his knowledge, speaking of a future Rome could not fathom, a Rome of towering structures and incredible machines. Over the next few days, Julia kept her word, unveiling the wonders of Rome to James. They strolled through the baths of Caracalla, where James marveled at the public baths' scale and ingenuity, the hypocaust heating system, the frigidarium's cold plunge pool, and the social interactions within. It was an experience unlike any he had ever known. They broke bread together at a thermopolium, the ancient Roman equivalent of a fast food joint, serving lentil soup and bread soaked in wine. James found the food surprisingly palatable. He engaged in conversations with locals, discussing philosophy with a Stoic scholar and debating the merits of gladiatorial combat with a retired soldier. One afternoon, Julia took him to the Colosseum. The roar of the crowd, the gladiators' fierce combat, the stench of blood and sand. It was a spectacle both exhilarating and horrifying, a stark reminder of the brutal realities of ancient Roman life. As James delved deeper into Roman society, he began to question some of its practices. The stark contrast between the patricians' lavish lifestyles and the plebeians' daily struggles troubled him. One evening, while strolling through the Forum, they witnessed a slave auction. Men, women, and children were paraded like cattle, their dignity stripped away. James, unable to contain his disgust, voiced his disapproval. His words, though spoken in a language not entirely their own, carried the weight of his moral conviction. Julia, initially taken aback by his outburst, found herself pondering his words. She had never considered the plight of slaves. It was an accepted part of their world. But James's perspective planted a seed of doubt. This seed, she knew, would one day blossom into something more. Julia's Rome was one of power and grandeur. It was a city that ruled the known world. But James's arrival sparked something within her. His stories of a future where slavery was abolished, where all men and women were considered equal under the law, ignited a desire for change in her heart. They spent hours discussing the future. They debated the merits of democracy versus republic. They talked about education for all and the abolition of slavery. James, with his knowledge of history's mistakes and triumphs, cautioned her against utopian ideals. He stressed the importance of gradual change and compromise. Julia, inspired, began to see her beloved Rome through new eyes. She envisioned a more just and equitable society. She knew the road ahead would be long and arduous, but James's visit had shown her that change, however improbable, was possible. Days turned into nights. The weight of his imminent departure pressed heavily on James's shoulders. He had witnessed the glories of Rome. He had tasted its food, walked its streets, and befriended its people. He had fallen in love with its spirit, even as he grappled with its flaws. The temporal rift that had brought him to ancient Rome was unpredictable. He knew his time was running out. He had to find a way to leave behind something of himself, something that would whisper of his existence long after he was gone. He pored over his notes, his mind racing. He sketched furiously, trying to capture the essence of Rome in his drawings. He knew these tangible things would disappear. They would turn to dust with the passage of time. He needed something more enduring, something that would resonate through the ages. In a quiet corner of Julia's garden, hidden amongst the myrtle and the roses, James penned his legacy. Using ink made from lamp black and gum arabic, he wrote on a papyrus scroll. This scroll became the repository of his knowledge, his experiences, and his hopes for the future. He detailed his journey through time. He described his encounters, his observations, and his growing admiration for Julia Severina. He wrote of their conversations, her burgeoning desire for a better Rome, and the seeds of change he had sown. He entrusted the scroll to Julia. It was a secret they would keep, hidden from prying eyes. He made her promise to keep it safe, to share its contents when Rome was ready to listen. It was a gamble, a message in a bottle tossed into the sea of time. James Carter vanished as suddenly as he arrived. He left behind a void in Julia's life and a scroll that held the weight of history within its delicate folds. She kept her promise. She treasured the scroll, its strange symbols a constant reminder of the time traveler who had touched her life. Years passed. Julia, true to her convictions, worked for change. She became a powerful voice for the downtrodden. She advocated for the rights of women and slaves. Her vision of a more just Rome, a vision sparked by a stranger from the future, slowly began to take root. The scroll, hidden within the walls of her villa, lay dormant for centuries. Its existence, a secret passed down through generations, became a whisper of legend. Will it ever be found? Will its secrets be revealed? Only time, the keeper of all stories, holds the answer.